On behalf of the great barbershop family that Andrew belonged to, we would like to express our deepest condolences to Andrew's family, to Johanna and Madison and Chelsea and so many others. We grieve with you during this time of sadness, but we also celebrate a man whom we all admired so greatly. Both Chris and I had the privilege of being a musical director at some point to Andrew, and therefore we were kind of like teachers to him. And I'm sure that people from the Kitchener-Waterloo chapter as well as the Sarnia chapter would probably agree with some of these things we're about to say. However, both of us learned so much from Andrew and how he lived his life. And we thought that what better way to kind of do this than to share some lessons and some stories that he taught us. Number one, determination. Anyone who spent any time with Andrew knows how determined an individual he was. When Andrew set his mind to something, he went after it and would achieve it. It was all like a game or a challenge to him. Over the last few years, I got to chat with Andrew almost weekly at chorus rehearsal. I was always aware of his struggles in terms of his pain management, but regardless of how much pain he was in, there he was with a big smile on his face. He would stand on the risers as much as he could and make a positive contribution to the chorus. Many of us shut down when we're faced with adversity, but Andrew seemed to look at everything like an obstacle that could be jumped over. Regardless of what the challenge was, Andrew seemed to go after it head on.
The first time I got to know Andrew was when I coached the local chapter, the Twin City Harmonizers. I had just returned from my first international contest with the Mega City Chorus in Toronto. It was the summer of 2006. And our coach at that time was Dr. Greg Line, and he had invited the Mega City Chorus to be part of the Russian Barbershop Festival in 2 years' time. So I happened to mention to the Harmonizers that there would be an opportunity for people to sign up as guest travelers and be part of our Canadian delegation for this momentous trip. Immediately after that coaching session, Andrew came up to me and said he wanted to come with us on the trip. So I said, okay, I'll let you know details about the trip as they came down the line. I'll get him that information as soon as it became available. He then said, no, you don't understand. I don't want to just come along. I want to be a member of that performing chorus. And this was at a time that he had only been singing barbershop for about 5 years and hadn't done any quartetting in the past. None of that mattered to him. He was determined that he was going to do whatever it took for him to pass the audition, to become a member of that chapter and be part of that incredible journey. And it took 2 attempts to do so, but he did pass and he became a key member of the chorus. Together we had the opportunity to travel across North America, competing in international contests, but that Russia trip stands out as a shining moment in our shared barbershop experience.
Number 2, don't worry, there's only 17 more. Number 2 is taking risks. Andrew made us all realize just how special life was by the way he lived. I got to see him realize many bucket list items, and nothing was going to stand in his way. He seemed to be like the Energizer Bunny, speeding through and getting things done. For years, Andrew had a dream of singing and competing in a quartet. Now, if any of you have ever sung in quartets, you know how difficult it can be. And for Andrew, it was even harder because in the past, people had said he just couldn't do it. In 2016, Andrew took the risk, formed a quartet called Spiffy, aptly named, as Andrew always looked very spiffy. And with some private coaching by Chris over here, they not only competed, but they also sang at Andrew and Joe's wedding. I always admired his tenacity when taking on new risks and never looking back.
Andrew took to heart that concept of taking risks. When someone chooses to do comedy in a performance, there is high risk. High risk of it failing if it's not executed well, but there is also equally that high potential for reward when it's pulled off. Andrew was always willing to take on any amount of risk that we asked of him. In our first year together, we planned to do the Mega City Chorus, a clown set. But these were not your traditional kid party clowns. These were very serious, tragic clowns. And as part of this set, we needed to come up with individual names and backstories for our clowns. There were also a few specific clown characters that were required as features. One of the clowns we needed was a ballerina clown. And Andrew jumped into that role wholeheartedly. I think many of you saw the picture on the slideshow of him. You may not have realized what it was, but he had the clown face, and there was the feather boa around his neck, and in the long shot you would have seen the tutu around his waist as well. And when he put on that tutu and feather boa, his clown character of Candy was born. He was forever known as Candy at Mega City after that, and it was a name that he owned proudly.
Number 3, choosing to help. I think most of us witnessed Andrew's helpful nature. However, as a director, I noticed so many small and behind-the-scene events that happened. Andrew seemed to be so observant of others and read their body language and expressions like we would read a book. He would go out of his way to provide comfort, laughter, and a listening ear when someone was having a bad day, even though he was going through so much himself. And as Ron said earlier, and Chris and I with Supertonic and so many other quartetters out there, he was always helpful to us before a performance competition, reminding us not to suck.
10 years ago, my life was not in a great place. I was working as a waiter at a golf course, and my dad had just passed away. I needed to get my life turned around. And in one of our many conversations while carpooling to rehearsal, we were talking about my work situation. I mentioned that I had been to career counseling and that the tests I had taken suggested I might be well suited in doing technical writing, something I had never considered in my life before. His head snapped to me while he was driving, so I had to remind him, keep eyes on the road. But he said his company needed people to do editing of online math and science textbooks. So he helped me to get an interview at his company, which led me to working with him at MapleSoft. And then less than a year later, my wife, Juanita, took a job that she ended up absolutely hating and felt totally stuck. And as luck would have it, MapleSoft was looking for a new senior accountant. Andrew recommended her for that position, and Juanita is still working there to this day. And many people knew Juanita as Andrew's work wife. I have no doubt in my mind that Andrew's help had an immeasurable impact on the lives of my family, and I'll be forever in his debt to that.
For leading with positivity. If there was a picture beside positivity in the dictionary, Andrew's face would definitely have been there. In spite of the cards he was dealt, he faced adversity with positive thoughts and a wonderful sense of humor. I truly believe it was the positivity and his positive outlook that gave him so many more years with all of us. He was someone who could be relied on to get things done and not complain regardless of the task. I very much admired this quality in Andrew, and I try to embody that quality every day. And lastly, being an inspiration. Chris and I have been chatting a lot about what we were going to say while we were writing this together. And what we both realized was that much of Chris's experiences with Andrew was prior to him having cancer. And a lot of my experiences with Andrew was while he was dealing with cancer. What we both realized was that Andrew was the same person, cancer or not. All of these traits and characteristics that we talked about were part of who he was. He chose to be an inspiration by the way he lived his life, with determination, by taking risks, choosing to help, leading with positivity, and of course, love. Andrew, you will be sorely missed. Our barbershop family has lost one of the greats. To finish, to quote A.A. Milne or Winnie the Pooh, how lucky we were to have had something that makes saying goodbye so hard.